Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I have your attention, please? Before we begin the webinar, may we inform you of the following guidelines. Only panelists, research speakers, and moderator will use the microphone for smooth implementation of the webinar. You can write your questions or comments in the Q&A box located below the screen anytime. Questions will be discussed after all the presentations of the panelists or research speakers. The webinar is recorded for documentation purposes. You can download the presentation materials upon receipt of an email advisory from the organizer indicating the link and password. Certificate of attendance will be given a week after the webinar. Thank you for your kind attention. The webinar will begin shortly. Please stay tuned. Thank you.
Our tech crew get ready. We are about to begin the webinar. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar on content marketing. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Norilyn Babiera, and I lead Fiera de Manila for the last 25 years. And we are a company that organizes trade exhibitions or expos, trade fairs, and we organize industry conferences, seminars, and trainings. For this particular activity, we have pivoted because of the pandemic. So instead of organizing a face-to-face or in-person seminars, we are doing it in the webinar format. So for today, our topic is very important. Every marketer should really harness their skills with regards to content marketing, because everything that we message to our audience will be based on strategies and techniques on how we can earn their trust. The internet is crowded and noisy with various promotions, infographics, flashing banners, memes, clickbaits, subscription pop-ups, white paper, blogs, videos, vblogs, and many more. Brands are in a race every day to capture the audience or the attention of our customers. Marketers and brands stand out in the noisy crowd of content. What makes an effective storytelling narrative and content marketing strategy to earn the interest and trust of their customers? Today, we will learn insights and effective guidelines on content marketing from industry experts. And let us now go down to business. Our first speaker is a digital transformation agent and evangelist, a culture maker, a data whisperer, and a chief storyteller. He is the founder and CEO of Castle by the River, a digital transformation agency, and has over 25 years of experience in the field of advertising, digital marketing, public relations, and strategic planning. He is the country head and partner of Etropia CBR, and he will discuss today the art of storytelling. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Eduardo Mapa Jr. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Norlin. Good morning, everyone. Let me just set up my presentation.
Okay. There you go.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Norlin. Good morning, everyone. My topic for today is all about the art of storytelling. And to begin my sharing all the experiences I've had in storytelling. Allow me to share a little of something about myself. I love stories. I mean, I grew up in a family of storytellers. My mom used to contribute to a magazine, and I'm sure that some of you may be familiar with this. The magazine's name is Women's Journal. Apologies if you hear some of my pet dogs barking on the side. I have 6 dogs at my home. Um, so I grew up in a family of storytellers. My mom writes stories. She contributed in a magazine called Women's Journal. And her forte is rather unique. She writes stories about ghost stories, about supernaturals and folklores. And she would do extensive research and how to bring life to these stories that she finds in the provinces. My late grandmom is also a storyteller. She used to write stories, contribute stories in tourist magazines. She brings magic to destinations, and she has the ability to spot stories within these places and put magic what these destinations are all about. And for over 25 years, I've been privileged to work in an industry that is all about storytelling. I've also had the unique experience to be cross-posted in markets like China, India, and Singapore, and have experienced and I've seen and how stories are crafted and told in the lens of that particular country or market, in the lens of people and their culture. And in that 25 years, I've been privileged also to handle various brands that tell different stories in various categories. I've been privileged to handle brands, various categories like detergent bars, banking industry or the finance category, automotive, even the so-called vice accounts, cigarette during the time when cigarette advertising was allowed, liquor, beers, whiskey, and yes, I've tried also condom advertising. So I've witnessed how stories are being crafted in various categories. And one thing in my 25 years of experience in various countries and markets, one thing I have observed, and it's very clear, that while stories may be told in different manner, generally they have a certain format. And stories come from many places. Like in this case, this is a photo of an exhibit in Beijing, China, the height of winter season. And this exhibit is organized by students in cooperation with Greenpeace. As you can see in this photo, there's a sculpture or a creation of trees. But one thing that is fascinating about this exhibit are these trees are actually built, created in chopsticks. As you may know, China is perhaps the world's largest consumer of chopsticks. And what the kids, in cooperation with Greenpeace, wanted to bring forth are the elements in the consumption of chopsticks, the balancing of creating chopsticks out of wood, or even the awareness that perhaps chopsticks should be created in a biodegradable form, or even cautioning manufacturers not to use plastics in creating chopsticks. And this particular visual was actually shared 2 million times in China's social media app called WeChat. An amazing display of a simple exhibit with a unique story that resonates with over 2 million shares. Or we've seen also visually how stories are being told, that words are not even needed to tell what the story is all about. In this case, it's all about Lego and Lego's way of trying to inspire kids to go into technology, or even inspire kids to go into a builder culture. In this case, it's inspiring children perhaps to aspire to be an astronaut. And stories come in many forms. It could be as simple as a billboard advertising wherein a very famous burger brand with a famous arc is trying to tell the story to its customers and consumers on the nearest location of their branch. Stories comes in many forms. It doesn't have to be video. It comes in many form of content. And fundamentally, stories come in a certain framework. That's why today I'd like to share with you how stories are created from the context of a word called storifying. And what is storifying? Um, Storifying is the composition of a story from real or fictitious sources so as to create change in the listeners, viewers, readers, and users' emotions, thoughts, and behaviors in a desired manner. So storyfying is creating a sense of composition, how to tell your story with an objective of changing behaviors, whether it's emotions, thoughts, in a desired manner. And when we talk about storyfying, obviously we need to look at it from the context of stories, or you have to think as storyline. And one of the famous writer in Hollywood, his name is Aaron Sorkin, said about stories. Um, every story must have two indispensable things: intention and obstacle. If you don't have those, then you don't have a story. That's coming from an award-winning writer. And the context is therefore, what do you mean by stories, and what is the core pillars of that story? Um, so we talk about intention and obstacle. And what does intention and obstacle mean? Intention, as we all know, in stories are always characters involved. Um, so what is intention? Intention is where the protagonist, or the characters in the story would have this intention of what is that our protagonists really, really want. And in the intention is you have an obstacle. And what is the obstacle? The obstacle is what is the very tough obstacle standing in the way of the protagonist to achieve what that person really, really wants. Two core pillars of a story. And perhaps the best way to see on how these two core pillars of a story is manifested, perhaps we can take a look at this famous movie. I think all of us are very familiar with this story. It's a story of Jack and Rose amidst the canvas of a sinking ship called Titanic. Um, when you look at what the Titanic story is all about, it's basically a love story, but it has an intention and an obstacle. And what is that intention? The intention of this story is that Jack and Rose wants to break the bonds of their separate classes and unite with their love, as what the story is all about. Jack belongs to an aspiring, struggling class, an aspiring young artist, while Rose, on the other hand, belongs to a very high level of place in society, in a very up class. And the obstacle of this story is Rose is already engaged to a powerful scoundrel, and her family's future depends on her going through it. Everything in that story talks about the unhappiness of Rose caught in that engagement with supposed to be her future husband. Those are the two core pillars of Titanic, but there are other narratives that when you combine them, it allows the story to be escalated, amplified, and even these components bring bigger life to what the storyline is all about. And there are many little narratives in between. Some of the narratives, perhaps, is the band story. We have 4 or 5 band members so passionate in their music, and they keep on continuing entertaining the passengers at the middle of the disaster. We also have some narrative about how the ship or Titanic was built. It's supposed to be indestructible and built by over hundreds of Irishmen. And also there's some narratives on the passenger stories, stories coming from the lower class, and there's struggles in life. And you have also stories of the passengers belonging to the higher class. And we all have seen the climatic, dramatic narrative or snippets of stories when it was time to abandon the ship. Perhaps even the story of the captain who chose to stay put. Perhaps a regret of what he failed to do, or even the dramatic struggle of passengers to survive. All these elements, narratives under the intentional obstacle brings life to a masterpiece of what this story is about, the award-winning Titanic. And of course, the question right now is, with this Hollywood, how do we put that storytelling in a marketing context that has a message, a conflict, a plot, or even characters and narratives? In my experience, brand practitioners, marketing practitioners, advertising agencies have different formats or templates on how to tell their story or the way to tell stories. But generally, there are common ingredients across all kinds of formats and templates. And those are the ingredients that you will see in how to create a storyline in a marketing context. And what are those ingredients? In any story, you must have a hero. In this case, in the marketing context, your hero should be your customer. In any story, there's supposed to be a goal. And that goal is what the customer hopes to achieve by using your products. And stories normally have tension points or obstacle. And what is the obstacle? In the storyline, in the marketing context, it's the problem your product will solve. And in many stories, you'll always have a mentor. In this case, your business is the mentor that guides consumers to the purchase decision process. And all stories should have a moral. In this case, the moral is a call to action that tells the audience what the next step should be, whether it's to visit your website, purchase product, or get more information. These are the common ingredients that we normally find across various kinds of templates executed by brands, marketers, and even advertising agencies. And perhaps appreciate these ingredients put in a storytelling of a particular brand or a marketing campaign. Allow me to share to you how the storyline of RCBC and how the storyline was crafted and launched when it launched its widest digital online banking services in history to date recently. Full disclosure, RCBC is a client of Entropia CVR, a company which I worked with. And the context here is when RCBC launched its widest digital marketing services, it is in a canvas of today. Today defined as the quarantine situation we're having right now, the safety protocols, the sense of uncertainty. How can customers continue to do banking financial services amidst this high concern on safety and going out in their so-called home cocooning? So allow me to share to you the storyline of this campaign, and perhaps you will see the elements of that format and how to put a storyline in the marketing context. Here it goes.
The world has changed. Have we adapted? Is it still business as usual? Can we get what we need? Can I send my loved ones money? Can I even go to the bank? What now? As RCBC looks ahead, we're keeping to heart your every need. With RCBC's widest range of digital services today, we can help you continue to grow your business. Send support to your loved ones. Get cash when you need it. You have our services on hand, so you can continue banking with us easily, safely, and conveniently. Hand in hand, let's keep going and leave those worries behind. Because at RCBC, we are moving forward with you every step of the way. Learn more and get started now.
As you can see, all elements in putting a storyline in a marketing context are all there. The hero obviously is the customer, the obstacle that the customers are encountering in today's so-called new normal. It also talks about the business of the brand, being a mentor, and obviously it also puts into forth on what is the moral or call to action. So if you were to summarize what the storyline of this particular message is all about coming from RCBC, it's perhaps best articulated in a Facebook post that describes what it's all about. The storyline would more or less be like this: as we adjust to our changing world, let RCBC help you get started with our widest range of digital banking services so you can continue banking with us easily, safely, and conveniently. Even in these uncertain times, we continue to put to heart your ever-changing needs so we can move forward with you every step of the way. That, folks, is in essence what the storyline is all about. A storyline that RCBC believes is something meaningful to its customers, particularly in today's times as they launch their widest banking digital services. So the other question is, would that storyline format applies to other forms? Perhaps we can take a look and dissect some way famous storytellers would tell their story. In this case, it's the e-commerce website of Tricia Gosimtian. She's one of the most popular bloggers, travel bloggers, and fashion. She's one of the pioneer in the blogging space in the Philippines. So Tricia recently launched her e-commerce website. The name of her e-commerce website is Hinhin. Hinhin captures, in a way, in many ways, what Tricia stands for. Her beliefs, her persona, and the kind of fashion that she's promoting. To appreciate Hin Hin and what Trisha stands for, let's take a look at this video that more or less describe what the essence of storyline of Hin Hin. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Hin Hin. But the storyline of Hin Hin is something that you can find written in Trisha's e-commerce website. And the storyline of Hin Hin is an ode to the secret world, born from introspection, from embracing and exploring your passions from within. Unfettered by noise, you discover the beauty, strength, and whimsy of your own imagination and memory. You begin to celebrate your own voice and vision as you realize you don't need to conform to be heard. With graceful resilience, you begin to write your own story, forge your own path, and create your own quiet revolution. You don't need to conform to be heard for you to forge your own path and create your own quiet revolution. That captures the entire storyline of what Hin Hin is all about. And everything you see in Trisha's e-commerce website embraces that storyline. From stories of her guests, highlighted, or even contributors. They come in many ways, various narratives, but they all embody what Hin Hin storyline stands for. And it has a role, as they say, what is the moral of this storyline of Hin Hin? It offers its readers to buy the kind of fashion that embraces what Hin Hin is all about. That is the entire storyline of Hin Hin, with all elements of the storytelling in place. The hero, the object, the obstacle, the intention, all these elements molded together to form the story of Hin Hin. Even global brands, while they differ in terms of templates, creative language, emphasis on certain points, embrace those general ingredients of storyline put in a marketing context. As we all know, Airbnb, so is the entire storyline says it's belong anywhere. It's all about local homes being rented out to tourists. It's all about understanding what the local culture is against the mass consumer, mass customization of tourists and even hotels. And everything that Airbnb do is all consistent to what the main story of Airbnb is all about. And perhaps if we put it from an intention and obstacle standpoint, how would that put into play? The intention for the Airbnb is returning us to a place where everyone can feel they belong. The desire to feel welcomed, respected, and appreciated for who you are, no matter where you might be. And the obstacle is because of mass-produced impersonal travel experiences, we lost those feelings of trust and belonging. The intention and obstacle in between that are various narratives that Airbnb puts into play, and it comes in various touch points, various channels, and it starts off with the host of the place, the community where the host belongs. Even in their booking site, mobile site, website, you'll have matching preferences that allows travelers to look for places wherein they can match the preferences they're looking for, the neighborhood, the experiences. Even their social media, the always on content, captures also that kind of storyline. And any other campaigns they have, whether the recent previous year's campaign called Live There, all embody to what the major storyline of Airbnb is all about. The other most important part, when you do storyfying, when you look at storyline, is you really have to get up close and personal to the audience you're talking to. You need to discover insights and understand what kind of storytelling will connect them. Perhaps in the case like Uniqlo, for example, I think we all know Uniqlo, the lifewear brand, is so practical, the essentials are there. And some of the narratives that they're doing, is like in Pinterest, they have this simple do-it-yourself and how to put your hair up. I mean, as simple as that. But these narratives build to the bigger story of what Uniqlo is all about. Or even Western Union, wherein a lot of its business is coming from immigrants located in various countries. And since they're immigrants, and the stories that they do miss home, from the flavors of home being rekindled during the holiday season, is part of the narrative of what Western Union stands for. Or even in RCBC, that has quite a number of services, you can personalize content. You can address the various narratives in various personas, contextualize messages, and yet it's one product or service. So in this case, for example, this particular narrative is talking to the younger generation, the you only live once generation, and the product service and how it fits in. Or even the young entrepreneurs, how to make the best out of banking services. Or even a lady so OC in details, doesn't want to make sure that there are no delayed payments. Or even somebody who seemed to have problem organizing its documents and payments. All these various narratives form into one big story of what RCBC is all about. So this is storyfying. So when you talk about storyfying, you have to think storyline. Whether it's intention and obstacle, you follow a storyline format of what is the hero, the goal, the obstacle, the mentor. This is what storyfying is all about. They may come in various templates, but all the ingredients remain. But in storyfying and telling a story, what matters also, you have to understand your customers or your audiences and trying to determine what kind of stories that resonates to them. And what I'd like to share to you is my personal favorite storytelling. Coming from a stint of mine in one of the most creative agencies in Manila. Here's my favorite story. I hope you enjoy this story.
the sad eyes. Don't be discouraged, oh, I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all, and the darkness inside you can make you feel so small. But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show all your true colors. True colors are beautiful. But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show all your true colors. True colors are beautiful, like a rainbow.
And I'd like to close my presentation from a quote coming from Seth Godin. He said, "Marketing is no longer about the stuff you make, but the stories you tell." Thank you for listening. I'm Eduardo Mapa Jr. You can find my email address here. I'm forever curious. And just in case you're curious about the company I work with, here is the website. Maraming salamat po. Ed Mapa Jr. signing off.
Thank you very much, Ed. Wow, na-in love ako sa Oishi. I think it was so good that you gave us the framework of what a good storytelling is. Its elements or its ingredients, or what will make a very good storyline and narrative. That was very insightful. And you also gave us some case studies of major brands in the country, and you actually really anatomize the ingredients of this storytelling narratives that you have done with your clients and brands that you serve. So that was really very good in terms of giving us a discussion on developing stories, narratives, and maybe later on during the discussion, you can also tell us, how would we know that we are connecting to our customers? How would we know that our stories are connecting or relatable to our audience? By giving us some metrics on how we're going to see if we are really going down into or achieving our objectives, our brand objectives with regards to our campaign. So Ed, please stand by or stay tuned, because we will have discussions on several questions already sent in by some of our participants, and we will do that right after our second speaker. At this
Right.
point in time, thank you, Ed. And at this point in time, I'd like to acknowledge certain people, especially I'd like to shout out and say hello to our friends from Cebu, University of San Carlos. Miss Joyce, you are in the audience. Also, Cebu Builders, they are there in the audience, and thank you for your participation. There are something like 36 of us in the audience right now and in this webinar. Also, maybe I'd like to mention Mr. Amor Rao, who is the CEO of Airlink Aviation School. He and his team are also in the audience, and they have been participating in our webinar since April and up to this time. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. I hope the webinars that you joined with our projects are really fruitful for you and your team. So we hope to see you in our future programs as well. Okay, let's move on to our second speaker. She is the Chief Digital Officer of Havas Media Ortega. She brings with her deep experiences from traditional media to digital, from media planning and buying to business development and performance marketing. She's going to speak about effective content strategies. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Miss Shane Garcia Madamba. Good morning, Miss Shane.
Yes, good morning, Miss Norlin. Ako din na-inlove sa Uwishi bigla eh.
So we're looking forward for your presentation, which to me, again, is something that is very sharp, smart, and something that we can learn about, Miss Shane. Please take it away.
Thank you so much po, Miss Norlin. And thank you so much everyone for having me in FMI. Today, I will share with you effective content marketing strategies. So we're going to have quite a packed session, and I hope that you will be able to learn a thing or two. And again, I'm Shane. I've been in the industry for almost 20 years, and I've actually started my career with traditional media. So half of my career, I was doing TV, radio, print, outdoor, and now I have completely shifted to the digital. So now it's my first love. So I'm so happy to share with you some learnings that I have. And this is going to be all about content marketing strategies. Before I start, I want to share with you like a super fast fact that Google actually is telling us that the impact of creative to any campaign we're going to do, it's actually 70%, and that's a lot. That's a big number. That's a big percentage. So even if you have 100 million pesos to spend on digital media, whether it's on Facebook or Google, and your story, sabi nga po ni Sir Ed, if your story is not resonating enough, your content is not impactful enough, then we lose 70% of the opportunity to magnet our audiences. So it's a very important way to really wrap our heads around na napaka-importante of putting together our content marketing strategies. They need to be in place before we execute, all right? And whenever we look into brands these days, truly we are seeing a big shift. So one example I'm showing here would be Ligo Sardines. And for many years, more than 60 years, they have essentially played the brilliant basics, applying celebrity endorsers, having the family shot, a beautiful eating, like biting shot, a beautiful package shot. So all the brilliant basics, they have them covered. But obviously now resonance is defined quite differently across many audiences. And when we try to cookie cutter everything into a one size fits all, then that is when we start fragmenting reactions. We start fragmenting engagements. And Ligo has seen that. Especially with their use of social media. And now when you look at their content marketing strategy, it is, beyond expectations. They are still, of course, making sure that the brilliant basics are covered, but to be able to resonate with a younger audience, social media has been used by the brand quite differently. And we can see this in their most recent campaigns, their most recent posts about social distancing, or for example, riding along the news when the president announced the possibility of claiming special powers because of COVID-19. So riding along these social waves it has really helped brands like Ligo again resonate to a wider audience. All right, and things have truly changed, and we always talk about resonance when we think about how we can magnet, how we can encourage users out there to interact with our brands. And each and every one of us, all of us here in this room, we have different levels of resonance. Whether, for example, we see a brand on real estate, we have different levels of resonance when the topic of the academe comes up, right? We have different levels of willingness to engage. And when I show you this sample slide, so I'm showing you like a lot of images here in this slide, right? And at a glance, right, spend like around 5 to 8 seconds just staring at these photos. And I'm very sure all of us, right, we have different images that really stick to our minds automatically. Some of us we may have been dreaming to go to the beach for quite some time and going on a vacation, a long vacation for that matter. And some of us would really look into so I have a coconut tree over here overlooking the ocean, and I have a picture of, I think this is Coron, when I went to Coron a couple of years ago. Some of us might be mountain climbers, right? So you might resonate more with the second image here, like over a bonfire, sharing stories, spending overnight on top of a mountain. And if you are like Sir Ed and myself, we are dog lovers, right? And we might resonate with the image of my beagle here, and his name is Pickles the beagle, right? We have different levels of resonance, and us as brands, right? For the fact that we ourselves, we have different levels of engagements, we also need to arrive at that certain level that we are agile enough that audiences, different types of audiences can actually relate to what we're trying to say, right? And the last thing we want is that we're going to create a campaign only resonating with a few, okay? And that's not what we want, especially when we leverage on digital marketing, okay? So there's just one reason, one very big reason why audiences would have varying interests. They would have various levels of resonance whenever we provide stimuli in our marketing campaigns. It is simply because there are two types of audiences. So even if we have one singular, one universal truth when we are setting our precise targeting, like males, females, 18 to 24, first-time jobbers or whatever, right? There's only one reason why audiences would react differently. It is because we have audiences who are early adopters, and we have audiences who are naturally late adopters, or how we call them as laggards. And we need to cater to both. Not being able to cater to these audiences will sacrifice a lot to our reach deliveries, to our influence, to our capacity to reach a lot more of people. So content indeed provides 70% of the impact of any campaign today, right? So when we speak of content, there is a kind of a formula that we always need to remember. And I'm sure some of you have already implemented some of these tips and tricks, but hopefully my personal experiences, and I've infused them in the whole presentation. I hope that they will be able to help you as well as you put together your marketing campaigns, not only for Balance 2020, but beyond, all right? So brilliant basics on PPV, okay? PPV is like super one of the first few things that we have to set up before creating a content calendar or creating a big video. PPV stands for persona, personality, and voice. Super, super important. I find it so impossible to go out there and talk about our brand without having this solid understanding of the persona we're trying to portray, the personality we are communicating out there, and the voice that we are using whenever we create content, right, for our consumers to see. And funny that I'm actually using this image so to K-pop fans out there, to people who are fans of Crash Landing on You. You know, these types of content, they might look or sound the same, but when you dig deeper, content actually has a lot of dimensions, and these are the dimensions. Finding those right dimensions will have to be about understanding and discovering your PPV. All right? So we will go through one by one. First up, let's define persona. This is the aspect of someone's character that is presented to or perceived by others. As opposed to personality, this would be a combination of characteristics or qualities that form an individual's distinctive character, unique character, right? And lastly, voice. That's going to be the language, how we express ourselves as a brand. Are we using Taglish? Are we pure English? Are we using a lot of like medical terms, badly put, to convey authority or to convey credibility? So that's the voice, okay? And if we were to compare each side by side, I hope that you will remember these keywords, okay? Whenever you put together your brand persona, always remember that it's like a hat that you will wear each time you go to a meeting. And I'm sure all of us, we experience this day in, day out. Sometimes when we go to a meeting, we wear the hat of a client. Sometimes if we go to an appointment, we wear the hat of the boss, right? Or our superior. And in some situations, when we talk about our persona, we wear the hat of a wife or a husband, depending on what campaign it is supposed to be. And that's persona. You with agility, you actually transform or morph into something that a person can relate to given a certain situation. Okay? And personality obviously is something that we cannot change overnight. Personality would be what makes us unique, right? So it doesn't make sense if we put out a brand that's very extrovert, very bold, very brave, and then next year it becomes very shy, very soft spoken. Doesn't make sense, right? So personality, that's something that you really need to own as a brand. And you need to discover this, inspired by the feedback that you get from consumers and inspired by the data that you get from social listening. Find your unique personality and embrace that personality, because that would be one of your strengths in the long term, of course. Okay? And lastly, voice. It's the language that you will use. It could be your nonverbal cues when you put together a video content, whenever you do webinars, live streams, right? And that voice will have to do justice to what your persona is and to what your personality is. They go hand in hand. So when we put the three together, your PPV, we can look at some examples to see how they are manifested. And one example would be the classic, right? And the persona would be the practical choice. And in some situations, whenever you see a mother taking care of her child because he was wounded, so as a practical choice, instead of using all these beauty soaps, the mother would choose. And in some situations wherein, rather than being reactive to diseases, right? And whenever her child, given the situation, whenever her child would feel sick, she would only take action by giving like antibiotics and all these things. But because it is the persona of Safeguard could go out there and talk about prevention. And the mother could actually use Safeguard to keep her child protected, clean from germs, right? It's always the practical choice. On the other hand, when we talk about the personality of Safeguard, it's been quite some time, like through the years. Safeguard has not changed. It has always been the brand who would always wish you what is right. It doesn't mean any harm. It will always be family centric. It will never be a brand only for an individual, right? It will never be a selfish brand as a personality. It will always be about the family. and sacrificing and paying it forward. Okay. And lastly, the voice of safeguard. Now that we remember all their campaigns in the past and even their campaigns today, it's always that credibility, that ounce of credibility in the way they speak. In some regard, they would use the language of as a matter of fact language. And safeguard would not be talking about 99.9% germ protection without having doctor's recommendation or having data to back that up. It's always as a matter of fact. And when you put this PPV framework together, safeguard as a brand actually looks stronger, right? In the eyes of consumers out there. So I hope that is clear. Let's look at another example. I'm not sure if you know this brand, but it's one of my brands when I was really very young. I think sometime in late high school and college. And when let's use the framework PPV. Persona of Dickies, whenever you see their materials, it's almost like the black sheep, the different one, the unique one, the persona being the person who would always say no if 99% of the people would say yes. So very opinionated, somebody who would deviate from the norm. That would be the persona of the keys. And the personality has been consistent even until now. They're very outgoing, very brave, very eccentric, and even with music choice, they would associate themselves with rock music, very liberated music, very emo music, right? Really sets the tone as a brand. And even their taglines, and when you check out their social media page, they really have a badass voice. The language they use sometimes foreign. It actually sometimes feel so foreign, so weird. But again, there is a reason behind that because they are communicating a persona and a certain brand personality. And again, putting that together, whenever you see the logo of Dickies, you have this image in your mind. And that image is very clear. And that's the whole purpose of PPV. Okay, and last example to hopefully make sure that everybody's with me on PPV, Globe. So for Globe, whenever we look at how they execute campaigns, the persona will always be the premium choice, the millennial choice, right? And we have limited edition way of the brand appearing with audiences. And when the personality of Globe comes out as well, we see that Globe would be portrayed as very meticulous, naturally curious about new things, very young. The personality would always be millennial, Gen Z driven. Globe as a brand would love the spotlight because it's always first, right? It's always first whenever there's a trend. They would rather push it than just be a follower. And the voice, smartly written, it's spoken English. There would be selected situations wherein they do Taglish, but majority their voice, it's English to make it very, very, again, consistent with the persona, more premium. Okay? So I throw back now the question to you guys. Have you developed your PPV that when a person looks at your logo, will a person really remember who you are and who would, not forget you when the time of purchase, the golden moment, the first moment of truth comes? The person will not forget who you are, and the person will relate to your PPV. And that's hopefully after the webinar, you can kind of really think about, do we have our PPV in place? And that's very important. And just looking at some examples of how PPV can make or break a campaign, we've seen historically high-profile social media cases. We have, for example, Nestle making a very big mistake internationally, wherein they started deleting comments that were complaining about them and were even using the KitKat logo in a very bad way. And when they started deleting, fans started retaliating. So if the PPV is like a family, sweet, chocolate, if that's the PPV we have, and whenever we act on social media or any channel for that matter, and we start deleting and not listening to our fans, people will see through it and people will see the disconnect, and it can make or break us. And who would forget what happened to Manny Pacquiao, right? When he started talking about the LGBT community. And in a split second, Nike was not with him when he actually spoke up. And despite his apology, Nike said, not see ourselves in this kind of persona that you are projecting, right? And that's a very brave call from Nike, and truly they are doing what is needed to stick by their PPV. And I hope all of us brands, all of us products, we need to take our PPV seriously, because again, our consumers out there, they see through us. So some just do's and don'ts, tips and tricks for us. The brand persona, obviously, whenever we look at our brand persona, please be as realistic as possible. We don't want to convey a persona that it's too fantasy inspired, so it needs to be grounded, and we need to keep our feet on the ground. Our brand persona also has to be relevant to what consumers are looking for today. And again, amid the lockdown, amid the pandemic, we need to be very sensitive to what kind of persona we're trying to portray, because people are jittery, people are worried, people are thinking about the vaccine, right? So we need to be very understanding of the situation. And please do address a need and a want, so that we fill in the gap, and the tension the brand can easily answer. We need to not let go of that. Okay. Some don'ts are persona cannot be revamped overnight, right? This takes time. This takes a lot of thinking, strategic thinking for that matter. Please do also look at competition when you decide on what persona to embrace, because you might be communicating a persona that has been there already, and the category leader might have owned this persona that you are trying to portray. Then it's not going to yield the results that we want. And of course, brand personality, be faithful to your vision, be consistent. When you say or communicate a strong message back, for example, February 2020, we cannot change that by July or by August 2020. Be consistent. When there's something that you've communicated, you need to take it on and see it through. Some don'ts, when you select and decide on your brand's personality, don't pretend. Don't pretend to be somebody or a brand that is jolly, funny. If we know that that's not who the brand really is, that's not the design, that's not how the product is actually seen by the consumers out there. So the last thing we want is be bashed, right? And people complaining that we are not making sense to them. Okay? And lastly, for brand voice, please do elicit feedback, and feedback is always a gift. For some brands, I understand it's a bit hard to accept feedback, especially if it's negative, if it's a complaint. But do take into consideration the power of consumer feedback, because this will essentially help us make our brand stronger and more meaningful when we go out there. Okay? Be a friend, be someone that every consumer would like to speak with, rather than somebody whenever we reach out and the consumer would feel like, not again, I don't want to chat with you, I don't have time to call you, and yeah, that's a very sad output if we put up the wrong voice. Don't also be linear, like a monotonous kind of voice. So I hope that we can be diverse in a positive way. Don't also be a one-size-fits-all. Having just one voice in favor of one side, again, limits our ability to reach maximum audiences out there. And remember the visual I showed earlier, it's about the early adopter and the late adopter. And of course, with your voice, do not preach. Consumers do not like to be lectured, right? Whenever we put out a post, content out there, the last thing we want would be to be lectured with a 300-word essay. So please be careful with the brand voice that you choose. So when you create the tonality of your brand, so for example, if your brand would be fun, then therefore the tonality should not be boring. If you want to communicate warmth, um, be careful with the words that you use, the visuals that you use, even the font that you use. Do not be arrogant. If you want to be informative, be very careful with empty visuals. And later I will share with you some examples. If you want to be positive, of course, be careful with the words, the language that you use. If it sounds pessimistic, if, for example, your sentence is passive rather than active, then even if your tonality is right and your execution is wrong, then we are not communicating the right tonality that will magnet audiences towards your brand. Some examples here would be knowing the difference of badly put if we're pushing for decorative pillows. You see here what is fun. You have a background or a context that the pillows are on a sofa. So it communicates a living room right inside the home, very relaxing. And you have a copy that says reserved for Mrs. Always Right. Bring home the statement, peace from our home. Okay, so there's a call to action and there's a catchy statement that will make you really want to read it through and look at the image, right? So don't be boring. So this really gives me a cringe whenever I see content pieces where you have the actual image of the product and you have a white background. So it looks like a product catalog. So it really makes me, it really makes me upset, okay? So you see here that it's really boring. It doesn't really catch your eye. And you really feel the brand is selling to you, okay? So you need to have that eye to know the difference. And the difference between warm and what's arrogant and oh my goodness, and I think this has been one of the most ignored best practices. Do not copy paste posters, okay? Do not copy paste text heavy collaterals, especially now that most of our audiences are online. We have a limited screen size, especially when they are using their mobile phones. Communicate warmth. Communicate as if you were providing that experience right in front of their screens. And you will see here the difference of, instead of featuring a very empty, arrogant, buy me now branded poster, you actually provide an experiential image that we highlight. It's as if you were watching Taylor Swift in front of the stage. So that's a huge difference, right? So choose warmth and not arrogance. How about informative and empty? So for example, I'm sure everybody, we are so excited to go to the gym, right? And when you want to go to the gym, you want to see an image full of action, an image, full of activity, and there are people, warming up, doing their treadmill. Versus if you were a gym brand, you would post empty images. Nobody's there. You're taking a photo of the facade. Actually doesn't mean anything into getting into shape, right? So know the difference of informative versus showing something that's empty. And last, communicating positivity. So now here in Cavite, actually, since yesterday, the rain has been pouring unlimitedly. So it would have been a beautiful moment to coffee or right? So you would see here the background of rain droplets, and it's as if you have a beautiful aromatic cup of coffee in front of you. You just want to pick it up and sip, right? So that's the kind of energy you want to infuse into your visual, as opposed to you have again a very neutral, even to borderline pessimistic, that you have an image of Starbucks badly put, a coffee shop, and you're showing just the facade, but coffee is not about the facade, and it's not about the store. It's all about you and the coffee mug and your relationship with each other, right? So be very actively positive in your visuals, and it's very, very important. And remember what I said earlier, screen sizes are smaller. Not everyone would spend, right, and have a lot of time to go to the cinema, like a large screen, and see you in full life, right? Screens are smaller these days, so the way you communicate just with a visual and with a very snappy copy, you really need to consider the do's and don'ts as you put together your PPV strategy. So when you have discovered, you have fully understood your PPV, now it would be the perfect time to develop your style guide. Um, and this would be the execution part. And I'll be very honest with you. This would be, I feel, very easy if your PPV is clear, if you know what your personality is, the persona you're trying to portray given the situation, and the voice. You have those in place. The style guide will always come in easy breezy. So in this example, if you are a very feminine brand, you want to be very friendly, and the voice is very eye to eye, right? So we could, in your style guide, you could choose a lot of pink hues in your color choices, and these selections would be very much guiding you in your mood boards, in your branded memes, in your playbooks, right? And again, when the PPV is solid, the style guide is so easy to do. And I think what's very important when you put together the style guide would be how you create the total playbook for your brand. And here's an example of what I did before for a global brand, because obviously when you encounter a global brand ahead of you, we have global parameters that would have to be respected, but also there would be a level of localization. And the style guide is essentially covered by brand persona, brand personality, and again, the brand voice. Structure will have to be on you. So you need to put together your team structure, your team processes, and if there are complaints on social, if there's feedback, like negative feedback, you need to have a crisis management framework in place. And just to share with you again, persona and personality and brand voice, we have spoken about that quite nicely. You need to integrate that in your content calendar when you put them together, especially when you are leveraging on social media as one of your main channels. For structure, you need to identify the right people with the right roles. So if you have a writer, you have a social media manager, you have somebody taking care of the visuals, all of them will have to embrace your PPV very solidly, right? There's no excuse. There's no excuse that somebody, doesn't understand any of this, and that person cannot be part of your execution team. That's for sure. Processes also will have to come in place and ensure your mechanisms are there. If anything is delayed, if your content visuals are repeated, no, this happens. You get into the grind, and then you start putting together content na apparently nasabi mo na pala last year, and you have to have these processes in place to keep your content fresh, relatable, and highly resonant. And lastly, your crisis management. Make sure that when you receive feedback, you are able to label if it's crisis level 1, level 2, or level 3. Obviously, level 3 would be the most critical one. So you need to escalate it to your stakeholders if there are questions, there are queries that not a small team can handle. So it's sometimes we experience this, a lot of and in a lot of situations when we are facing pharma clients, it's a nightmare getting feedback wherein people get sick after taking the medicine. It's obviously on a tier 3 for escalation level. You need to have this in place. Beyond understanding, discovering your PPV, executing that through a style guide will also equal to you putting the right structure, you putting the right processes, right? And of course, being ready with any kind of feedback that comes your way. And that is what I expect of what a playbook should look like. And I hope that this visual will also guide you and inspire you to make sure your playbook is always updated, it's always future proof, and that you are agile enough to be able to create content that's relatable amongst all our audiences out there. Some tips also, if you have an analyst in place in your team, when you put together your PPV, always be on the lookout against competition. Not because you have set it back in 2012, badly put. It doesn't mean that you should have the same PPV forever and ever more. So you need to be on the lookout against competition and with what's happening in the category you belong in. And I suggest a methodology called factor clustering. You can cluster different channels, different platforms that are now being consumed by your target market. And this would inspire us of how our communication, how our messages will have to evolve. So remember my example of Lego earlier. They have done the brilliant basics before, but it's another tactic. It's another strategy to evolve and speak with a new consumer because times are changing. And because of these new situations, new scenarios, we also need to think about our PPV. Have we been capturing these new audiences, right? We need to ask ourselves that. And another methodology, lastly, would be using brand themes. I do this all the time. Whenever we do social scans, and this doesn't have to be like a super rocket science, data-infused exercise. It could be simply a result from a brainstorming with your teammates. So in an example of analyzing infant milk, whenever you study their materials, your competitors' materials, you will see the difference of the kind of precise targeting they're trying to aim for. And if the brand is what you will see here in the y-axis, if we juxtapose that against the brand's willingness to go fully digital, right? Based on if the brand has a website, the brand has all social media pages active, etc. You can place, right? You can place the brand in its rightful place. So if you find your brand difficult to put, right? It's difficult for you to position in the brand themes, then we have a problem. The PPV is not strong enough. The PPV is not unique enough, right? The PPV we've set, it's not big and agile enough given the new normal, the new times, right? And this is a very simple way of, again, testing your PPV if it is future-proof, okay? So we've spoken about style guides, we've spoken about PPV, and whenever we put together content pieces, again, we need to speak to the heart, whether it's about like something that's very light, something that is funny, something that makes you angry, right? It's a use of emotions. I leverage on what Crimson Hexagon, a social media company in the US, they have 3 essential ingredients when we play up on people's emotion. The first would be, we know that it is emotionally driving if people are reacting as soon as we get it out there. So here's an example of a campaign that will really make you react, okay? So I will attempt to play this video, but please do let me know if you do not hear the sound. So I'm gonna play it right now. Or Miss Marlin, would Paul rather play it for me? Or do you want me to try?
Okay.
The Art Institute of Chicago is now launching an interactive experience with the help of Airbnb.
You can live like Vincent van Gogh, but you get to keep your ears.
But if seeing simply isn't enough, you can also spend the night.
It's like jumping into a painting.
It is, look.
Van Gogh's 1888 bedroom painting was recreated and made available to everyone on Airbnb. The perfect platform to immerse yourself into the life of your host.
It's already sold out for this month, but there's always next month.
Good luck scoring a night in that room.
The first block of nights sold out in 5 minutes, and the guests who got in were thrilled. Within 1 week, this story was covered in over 100 countries. The room not only let people inside Van Gogh's art, it also told the world that Van Gogh's bedrooms had come to the Art Institute of Chicago. As thousands of people let themselves into Van Gogh's bedroom.
Thank you so much. So imagine an Airbnb room inside a museum, right? So that is how you make people react. Next would be, can you please click on next for me? I hope that, yes. So this one would be, again, another ingredient, and I will let the video speak for itself.
A is for AIDS, you know. B is for blood that flows. C is every girl a child bride. D is another dose. E is Ebola close. FGM, her childhood dies. G, girls are pushed behind. H, homeless, rain or shine. I hate to see those babies die. J, jail, your life's destroyed. K, killed by little boys. L, lives are lost before their time. M, N, O, P, I could go on all day. Q, R, S, T, alphabetically speaking, it's not okay. U, feeling undermined. V, leave your voice behind. W, when you're only just a lie. X, you're forced into sex. Y, young lives are wrecked. Z, zero options cast aside.
All right, and that is an example of using the language as an ingredient. So everybody will be able to relate to an alphabet song, right? And last ingredient, make people talk about your campaign. And this is gonna be my last video. I hope that you can click it for me, please.
gentlemen, this is Survival Billboard.
Pretty nervous.
I'm ready.
The pain is only temporary. Glory lasts forever.
You have the power. You can vote survivalbillboard.com. And you voted for snow. This is the start of the true endurance test.
I'm getting so angry at this rain!
A bit sadistic, but I like it.
Let us know what you're thinking. Keep chatting to us on Twitch.
They will be suffering from genuine fatigue at this point.
I underestimated the challenge. That's it. I'm done.
Goodness knows how they're managing it.
I'm gonna call it quits here.
They have been up there for an incredible amount of time. Our contestants have been through the elements.
All right. Thank you so much for playing those case studies for me, Miss Norlin. So again, the ingredients, if you want to play up on emotions, get your campaign to be talked about. Encourage people to really react on your content piece, on your campaign. And of course, resonate with the different people using a language, using as much as a universal language that you can think about, okay? So I'm now gonna share my screen again. So hopefully those tips of playing up on emotions will help us make stronger campaigns because again, nothing beats the heart. Sabi nga po ni Sir Ed kanina, di ba? We need to tell that story and that story would have a lot of those characters that we need to be able to relate with and even much more so a gap that needs to be filled. Okay, so now let's talk about scaling up content. Very, very important because if a content it's too tactical, okay, and it is unable to leverage on big idea that's big enough, right? It's very hard to implement the best practice content framework of hero, hub, and help. Right? Or hygiene, as some marketers would call it. When we talk about the hero content, this is all about the largest type of content brought about by the brand. So think along the lines of when Coke had their campaign before, Coke Open Happiness. That's what we call a hero campaign. So it is the largest of the macro overarching content streak that we will be able to envelope our brand with, our product with, okay? Followed by Hub. Hub is all about dissecting that hero content into pieces, into episodic, addictive pieces so that people will follow you, people would look forward to seeing your content. And lastly, health and hygiene content wherein it's gonna be about bringing all those stories released back to your brand. Because in some situations, the brand would be carried away, creating content that would be indirectly related to the category or to the product itself, then consumers lose space. Consumers lose space that you're actually an automotive brand, for example, talking about infrastructure, badly put. So these three buckets will have to guide how you scale up your brand when it comes to content marketing. And as mentioned, when you think hero, think the macro concept that brings all your tactics together, all your ideas together. Think of it as the golden thread that ties all the ideas together. And for Hub, it essentially allows consumers to follow you and make you as a hobby and you would release several episodes, different versions of your hero content, making sure that it resonates to as many people as you can. And lastly, again, bring yourself back to yourself because in execution mode, we tend to get carried away. We develop all these posts, and whenever you look at all these posts, do we actually talk about ourselves enough, right? To help people understand what we're trying to say and what the role of your brand is, what the role of your product is. So that health or hygiene content, that's what it does, okay? So scale up your content, very, very important. Together with you guys putting together your style guide. Remember the playbook visual I shared earlier. I hope that by this time you have that ready, you have that in place. So it's a matter of follow through. It's a matter of improving the elements there. And of course, PPV. Please do not forget this brilliant basic. Have your PPV in place, all right? And last but certainly not the least, remember I opened up this presentation by saying 70% impacted by the quality of content that we have. But what is content if it's not seen, okay? So I want to talk to you about very, very briefly the importance of SEO, making every content that we put out there searchable, okay? So when we talk about SEO, this sometimes, feel as if it's such an intimidating topic, but it's not. It's really not. Always remember that it's also about channeling your content pieces through the right channels, through the right platforms, so they get discovered. Kaya nga, it is always an argument, especially in our marketing world. Whenever there's a marketing budget, 70% would go to creative and 30% would go to, let's say, display ads. So the more that you spend on content, but we fail to make that content seen, distributed, right? Then it's we deem that content also equally a failure. And content, again, is nothing if it is not discoverable. And that is where SEO or search engine optimization comes in, okay? Whether you are discovered through an app, you are discovered through, browsing the internet, through YouTube, or maybe by searching, all these contribute to your score as being discoverable. And when we say content is nothing if it is not discoverable, it is all about understanding how it works, okay? So for a user, when you browse through websites and you see all the branded content out there, right? We see so much. We see videos, we see images, we see text. At the end of the day, when we talk about searchability, discoverability, search engines would only see a little, not everything. It would record, remember you for certain items, but not everything. So you need to invest in what counts. So in every search engine, there's what we call the crawler, and an engine crawls through your content. So if you have a website, badly put, you only have one article and you have one poster there, we don't have a lot to play with, right? We don't have a lot for search engines to crawl through, right? So be cognizant of what the user sees and also what the search engine sees. Sayang naman if we spend so much of our money, on developing content, and then not a lot of people actually get to see it, okay? And if after the webinar, I hope that you will make time, try to search for lots of example and search for brands and products you like. And here's an example, because recently I've been searching for collagen infused masks, right? And I see Watson's out in my search results. And here's the difference. The result that you see up here, that is what we call SEM, or search engine marketing. And you will see that there's a little green box up to your upper left side corner. It says there ad. So it means that Watson's is currently bidding for certain keywords based on what I just searched, and they would like for me to visit their website. And now results down there, even your contents in the Google Maps, for example, all those results are not sponsored ads. And this is where SEO kicks in. Organic search results, search engine optimization. And naturally, I am seeing these results because these sites and Watsons in particular, they have content perfect for me because I'm looking again for a collagen-infused mask. So imagine if your website or your landing page doesn't have enough content. I think it's going to be a nightmare, right? That's why SEO, I hope that you have somebody already in charge of this. And whenever we do the math, let's be mindful that SEM definitely can get you to the top, but that's only 30% of the chance to drive traffic to your site. Organically, that gives you a 70% chance of driving users to your website. So there's a lot of expectations from SEO, but also this takes time. This takes time for your team to put together the right contents because, again, search engines, most especially Google, they have algorithms in place to know if your site is right to show if somebody searches for certain keywords. Hence, when we talk about SEO, it involves a lot of writing. So I hope that you have very good writers out there. So you don't simply write because it sounds nice and the article sounds, but it has to contain enough keywords, right? The right keywords for that matter, for your content to appear. And note that 94% of the time, users search for multiple keywords and not just one keyword. Madami, right? So I could not emphasize more the importance of producing enough content to make your campaign discoverable. Ayan. So after the webinar, I hope that you can check out your content if it's enough, if you're using the right keywords for your content to appear when somebody searches, okay? And whenever we talk about categories, oh my goodness, this will take me at least 2 days, right? To talk about search in general and how it works, right? But to inspire you, I hope that you can, grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, and if you could put together your keyword mapping. So if your brand is all about the academe, for example, you could create your keyword map to include keywords on students today, keywords on lifestyle, keywords on the culture that your school has, keywords about events that you have. So your map will be comprised of so many topics. And then you ask the question, do I have content for all these topics that I know people will be searching for? Then that's the cue that you need to get to work, okay? SEO is very much easily understood by the algorithms released by search engines. And again, this is based on Google. We are a Google country. And just remember the 4 algorithms. No need to understand the back-end technical stuff of things. Just remember the evolution. And this evolution started way back in 2011, right? So kailangan kabisado na natin to, right? So in the searchability game, it all started with Google Panda. So I just put here some images so that you will remember them very easily, okay? Panda, the Google Panda algorithm was about fighting low quality content. So it's like if you are a website, you're just copy pasting content from other sites, you're not providing your own perspective, your own opinion, then that's a thumbs down for Google. And that is because they have the Panda algorithm. And in 2012, they launched Google Penguin. And this was essentially their fight against black hat SEO and those who are abusing natural backlinks. Meaning, if you were a site about pharmaceutical and you've been quoting, abusing different links out there of bloggers, publishers, other credible sites, and then you keep on linking them to yours, but your pharma website has nothing to do with all those topics, then Google will penalize you because they have the Google Penguin algorithm. second to the last, and I believe this was back in 2013. It was AI-inspired artificial intelligence, wherein the Google Hummingbird algorithm introduced the translation of semantic search from the concept to an exact reality. So imagine yourself when now you search for, like, let's say, like ramen near me. Because of the Google Hummingbird algorithm, now the Google search engine knows that you're looking for lunch, or you're looking for dinner, or widely, you're looking for Japanese cuisine. That is how now the search engine is able to translate what's going on in your mind into something that's closer to reality and closer to what contents are available in the web. Okay. And lastly, and I think this was in 2016, the Google Possum. Now that everybody is on mobile, results are optimized based on where you are. So when I search for certain branches of my favorite brands, I will not see branches in Caloocan because I'm right now here in Cavite. So again, it doesn't make sense. Everything that we search for now respects all the things that we want to see, because again, this is all about discoverability. So always remember the 4, okay? It's been best practice. Whenever we put together contents, we need to respect these algorithms. And I leave my session with this slide wherein, again, SEO is linked to everything you do, whether it's offline, your posts on social media, whenever you do your press releases, whenever you do your search engine marketing. Oh my goodness, SEO has a role. So do not forget this as part of your best practice and brilliant basics. And remember, I started again with this presentation, 70% impacted by the content that you do. Sayang naman if you put in so much effort to your content and it's not gonna be seen, okay? And to cap my presentation, part of my outline is actually to share with you, case studies, brands to learn from. And I think throughout my presentation, I've shown you a lot of examples, but I just wanted to share with you something that I hope that you can consider. And it's really looking at beyond 2020. This is beyond our marketing selves. And I think we've seen a lot. We've seen brands do promo codes. We've seen brands do buy one, take one, celebrity influencers, bloggers, like music marketing, 3 in 1 plus 1. I mean, all the brands have done it, to be very honest. So in terms of case studies, I'm going to share with you the future. And for me, after all, my topic is effective content marketing. For me, effectiveness has evolved. We are now redefining what we say is an effective marketing strategy. And this is now about transforming into something that is what consumers demand. And this is entirely a new demand because now we are facing a new challenge. And I know that, we've talked about, again, scalability. We've talked about personalized, stylized, emotional campaigns. We've covered that. But now there's a new demand. There's a new expectation from consumers. Consumers expect us to have a stand. Consumers expect us to believe in something beyond being able to clean clothes, beyond being able to, to sell cans of sardines. Consumers are beyond that. And we need to be beyond ourselves as well. And I couldn't visualize this more by actually showing an image of Greta Thunberg, and I'm sure you know her. A 17-year-old environmental activist, very, very young, but a lot to say. That is what brands are expecting us to do, to have a stand and to believe in something. That is why if you ask me, the brands or the case studies we should learn from today, these brands have figured out their PPV. They have gone through a lot of emotional campaigns to touch our hearts, and now they are beyond that. And these are some campaigns I'm flashing. I mean, now they are speaking to our hearts like never before. tapping into topics like child labor, touching on topics on LGBT, having a say on stop hate profit, right? It's unbelievable. You have different brands again making a stand, and here we are. Times have changed, and people will expect us to have a belief. In Havas, we have a study called Meaningful Brands, and it's out there. I hope that you can Google it. There's all about data on meaningfulness and you. And I know that there are a lot of people in this call. You're coming from different categories, but if you check it out, we do globally as Havas, we do meaningful brand survey. And based on our 2019 survey, we actually had our top 10 most meaningful brands. The brands who have taken a step higher than just selling and just, going along with the flow, but they have been out there and they have been talking about their beliefs. And out of the first 10, you will see here a lot of digital brands. And to be very honest, I hope to see your brand very soon. Doesn't matter if it's a local brand, a regional brand, or a global one, but I do hope that you will find a new KPI as you take inspiration from the larger enterprises out there of truly identifying an effective content strategy. It's also about being meaningful. And that for me is what we need to look out for. And I hope that by doing so, we are able to apply the brilliant basics. So never forget what I've mentioned, PPV, putting together your style guide as part of the bigger playbook that you have on hand, the ingredients of playing up on emotions and making sure there's some golden thread that ties all your execution together. That's what we call the hero content, making your campaign episodic, something to follow in that hub, right? And making that connection that your brand has a role, and that is your hygiene or health content. And again, lastly, as I've ended my presentation, there's a new currency beyond being able to sell. It's about being meaningful. And I hope to see your brand out there giving out meaningful content. All right? So there, thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for giving us those effective strategies in terms of our content. And you know what? I love your finale when you said that it has to be meaningful. I think there's really a big movement for us to do value-based content because there were clamors even in the ABS-CBN issues with regards to content programming. And the same so when we create our content for our marketing, for our brand marketing. So the prominence of having it value-based, making it relevant and meaningful to today's generation of consumers, as well as shaping their value system is something that we should really put into our minds as marketers. Thank you so much. It's really very meaningful, very relevant, and top-notch. So at this point in time, I'd like to invite back Ed Mapa. Are you there? Can you unmute your camera or your video? Because we will now, both of you will answer these many questions sent in by our participants. So maybe we could start the ball rolling.
Noreen, before we go to the question and answer, I would like to say that, hey, Shane, listening to you is like giving me a blast what ought to be the brilliant basics in digital marketing. Kudos, Shane. A very good way of putting the framework in place.
Thank you so much, Sir Ed.
Actually, both of you has given this morning, so wow, big learnings with regards to content. To me, as a marketer, number one is really content, that I really have to harness my skills on how am I going to connect with my customers, with my consumers and my target audience, and I will do it through messaging and what's in my content. So both of you are really brilliant in giving us this information today, as well as insights of your experiences. So this is for Ed, I think. You have to create your brand and image persona. That's right. Can you suggest for the food and resto establishment like casual dining, what would be typical personal for the Filipino online audience when you are storytelling?
Right. You know what?
Ed?
So, yes. And what is amazing to that question is recently I had the chance to um, um, be part of the online event of Cannes Lions this year. And one of the topics that was presented was how do you pivot? How do you build certain stories in the age where you need to pivot in this pandemic of ours? One of the examples placed there was restaurants, the business of restaurants, and how to build a pivot from eating your food in a restaurant into something that there is a trend not right now called home cooking, because of the home cocooning part, wherein you assemble the elements and you deliver that and allow the consumers to do their own cooking, obviously under the context of what the restaurant stands for. The restaurant is, and at the same time, one of the things about the food industry right now, when you talk about even cooking, chefs and everything, it's not simply already a brand image of taste. It's a combination of many fronts. The smell of the food, the ambience of it, they all combine the one unified story of what the experience is all about. So from the food industry's particular during today's times, I think, and we've seen it. We've seen how restaurants try to survive. In my place alone, where I live in Binyan, I've seen so many businesses who are into food pivoting to small villages distribution, which captures the magic of what the restaurant is all about. In the food industry, to my mind, the story is really all about experience at the end of the day. What the food tastes, the aroma of the food. It's also you have to define where you are in the food industry. If you're in a fast-moving consumer of kind of food industry like a McDonald's, a Jollibee, so it has a different context. So it really depends on where you are in the food industry. But if you're in the restaurant business, I think it's all about experience. Experience, and in this particular age, is how do you bring that unique kind of a meal to home cooking? What is that experience that your customers will have? So if your customer is so used to going to your place during the pre-pandemic time, is you bring that magic straight to the homes, and where your customers will experience again what that magic is when you go to the restaurant. Obviously, the physical part you cannot replace, but at the end of the day, it's all about the food part, the experience, the cooking, the taste, the aroma, having a brilliant, memorable dinner with your family, with your significant other. That combines the elements of what the story is all about.
That's true. So people are buying experiences. More than ever, it's the experiences that they will value most, they will cherish, and that's where that's what they're paying for, which leads us to this question. No? So Mary, just read the question first because I want to relate it to something. Somebody said that, you mean there is no need for us to show our products? What if we are a new brand? You know, before the two of you will answer that question, let me also give my observation. If you look at how McDonald's are doing their content presentation through their ads, they would show the feature of the burger, of the meat patty, and how juicy that is. But if you look at, on the other hand, Jollibee, how they presented their burgers, there is no image of a product that they're selling, like a burger or whatever that goes with it in a combo. But what is prominent in the ads or in the content of Jollibee is, there's a child together with his lola going to the store. There is this mother trying to care for her preschoolers and giving them the food. So if you look at that, it's really more of relationships, more of how emotions are built with regards to experiences that you will experience when you will have these brands, when you purchase this brand. So what is your take on this, the two of you? You have to answer this.
I think let me first answer that. I'm sure because earlier Shane has touched on certain elements on it. The context of the storyfying doesn't mean that you don't have to show your product. It's not saying that it's all about feelings and emotions. That's why we're saying you need to look at it from the context of who your audiences are. Where are you in this cycle of things if you're a new product? But more importantly, I think, and Shane touched on this already, we are living in different times today, and I don't really believe today, particularly today, there's a pivot already in how stories are being told. It's not the kind of storytelling that has to be massive in order to build a story that will resonate. The examples I've shared with you focuses on formats rather than the kind of channels that you have to play. Today, we're in the age, and I would like to argue and say, we're in the age where small is actually the new big. It's not anymore a massive display of big storytelling that will create or resonate your target audience. Remember, even what Shane is saying, in the arena of digital marketing, audiences have changed in terms of their behavior. The consumer funnel is not as simple as the way it was before. And we've seen businesses earning millions without necessarily having the massive scale of a Procter & Gamble and a Unilever. One of the partners I have in the agency is into e-commerce. He's into liquor delivery. His wife is into online high-end shampoo business. They're earning money. As a matter of fact, that liquor delivery, one of the major beverage brands bought in a share there. So it's not anymore, storytelling isn't, in today's time, isn't manifested by the bigness of the storytelling. It's more of how the breadcrumbs that you define the story that reaches their audience. Small villages are already big, important geographic locations for certain businesses. If you haven't had that national scale, then don't go massive way of building stories. Do breadcrumbs. What is important is you craft what is your overall story, experiment, see where it's coming from. In today's world, you can measure things, right? The moment you put certain content, try to see what your customers' reaction is. If it's a new brand, as you go through the awareness phase, remember, it's not anymore a linear thing. You can be discovered from the interest phase. You can be discovered, as Shane did say that. You can discover that in search. You don't have to be massively on big channels in order to be discovered. So I believe right now storytelling isn't the way it used to be. Small is the new big. How you define your story, the breadcrumbs, the narratives that you put into play, whether it's search, whether it's personalization, all of this defines and collectively builds the story to your customers. So yes, that's the shift I'm seeing, and the shift in the kind of storytelling. Obviously, who says you cannot put a product? We've been into an e-commerce business. We've seen how a product catalog helps create interest. But then again, it has to be played in a manner that does not simply say that I take a photo over a white backdrop and put it there and everything will kawabanga, right? You need to strategize where you will distribute that piece of content. So storytelling has a different context right now. Even bigger brands are trying to behave small. They're looking at performance marketing. They're very focused on little granular breadcrumbs that they'll be able to understand more about the customers and their audiences. It's how they will pivot in today's time.
Yeah, there you are from the expert. Michelle, can
Yes,
you?
truly, yeah, truly. I truly mirror what Sir Ed has mentioned, and I think another realization. No, I don't know what has gotten into me, but I actually started buying products because they are near me. And I think I am in the wave of hyper localization. Kasi that's really high right now, di ba? Hyper localization. I'm now buying Japanese food from a store very near us. And I now realize, having listened to what Sir Ed mentioned, is it about the taste or the aroma or the facade of the store? Or actually, no, it doesn't even taste like perfect. But it's because at the back of my mind, oh my goodness, I'm helping a Caviteño. I'm helping somebody near me, right? And all these SMEs trying to recover, bounce back from the pandemic. And there's this little idea in my head that I'm buying not just because of my personal motivations, because it's food, right? But it's actually being able to give back. And those, oh my goodness, guys, these are the kinds of stories that we need to put out. And remember what I've spoken about, the early adopter and the late adopter. That audiences have different levels of triggers. Early adopters might understand you when you talk about like langhap sarap, my burger is so big and juicy. They get it. And just by seeing that juicy burger, they will buy you. But the other bigger majority, they have different things in their heads. And now it's our marketing task. It is now our task. And now, because you are in this webinar, after this webinar, I challenge you all. How do you now talk to that bigger space by touching their hearts? Apart from touching their pockets and touching their tongues, their taste buds, how do you touch those hearts and leveraging on the issues that we have at hand today? So again, thank you to, I think it was Mr. Theodore who raised the question. It is indeed a critical question. So now the challenge is on us to find that beautiful balance. The balance of, because you are a new brand, the balance of leveraging on your USP, who you are as a brand and your role in the bigger category, but even as a bigger task, your role as a brand in the hearts of people today.
Very relevant message and answer. Huh? So another question from Michael Cole is there a particular story theme or content marketing that resonates strongly with the general consumer? Because I observe that these past years, major brands were quite cheesy in their content? Both of you can answer that question. Are you still thinking, Sir Ed?
You can actually Google search this, Content Marketing Institute. There are 21 human triggers. They call it human triggers. That triggers engagement, interest level, or kinds of content. So that's something that you may want to look into. Now, from a local standpoint, it really varies. I mean, social media is a way to decipher it, but it doesn't necessarily mean what you see is exactly what the trend is. Remember, Facebook goes targeting. It's the content I see may not necessarily be in my newsfeed, may not necessarily be the newsfeed that Shane has. I mean, there are algorithms in the so-called walled garden players. So the best way to look at certain trends, obviously, correct, meaningful things are so important today's time, particularly today's time, because the pandemic allowed us to look at ourselves and what matters most. But I still believe the content, the content that matters is where your audiences are and where they are in the consumer funnel. And the reason I'm saying that, because I've seen businesses grow in the e-commerce space with simple storytelling tactics. They talk about the products, they talk about what the products brings to them. Obviously, pricing comes in, and obviously there are other elements that depict the storytelling, but it works. It's delivering businesses that a lot of brands and small businesses haven't discovered way back. And that's the power of digital today. You're able to dissect things. You're able to focus on one area, build on it, make your business grow. So it depends on where you're panning it out. If your brand wants to play the cheesy play, because that is your definition of your audience, so be it. Be cheesy. But the bigger question is it really contributing to your business, or people just love to talk about it? It depends on what your content objectives are all about. And therefore, whatever your content objectives are all about, there are metrics to that, whether it's acquisition metrics, whether it's even the so-called cart metrics in e-commerce. It really depends on where you are, where your audiences are, and how you define the breadcrumbs of your story.
You want to add, Ms. Shane?
Yes, I was about to say, jokingly lang naman, baka naman Sir Mike, the reason why you're seeing cheesy content from brands, baka naman kakapanood ng Crash Landing on You or a lot of drama content out there. But kidding aside, if I may add to what Sir Ed has shared, right now, I take into consideration the campaigns I'm currently handling. I'm seeing two very strong general consumer sentiment. They would vary in terms of top 5, top 7, top 2, but I'm seeing it across the brands right now. And I will share with you two. One is the theme on helpfulness. There is now this, I wouldn't say expectation, but there is now this norm being felt by the general public that everyone, no excuse, large enterprise, SME, whoever it is, the expectation of you being helpful, no matter how small or big, it's out in the open. So being passive, being indifferent, that is a big no-no right now. That is not the sentiment I'm seeing from brands. So whether it's a help of reminding how to wear your mask correctly, reminding people out there to wash your hands. It doesn't matter. But now the flavor of content, the sentiment of it, it's about helpfulness. Second, I am seeing, because again, from our social listening exercises, we have this analysis called LDA, or latent direct allocation. Simply put, factor clustering of all the comments and feedbacks across the brands. The second theme that I'm actually seeing, it's humor. And I remember in one of our Havas webinars, we've talked about this. One of the biggest learnings, I think it was top 6. It's about entertaining ourselves to normalcy. We are dreaming of the outside world, or better yet, we're dreaming of the past. Doesn't make sense, no? It's so weird. We should be dreaming about the future, but now we're dreaming about the past. We're dreaming about the things we used to do. We're dreaming about our last trip to London, our last trip to Paris, the things that we so enjoyed. So the second theme that I'm really seeing, it's exactly that, and there's a reason why. It's because that's gonna be how the culture is morphing into a new community of feeling for each other and helping each other.
What's so amazing also, Shane, you brought that up. One of the topics in Cannes Lions in the online event was one of the things that they showed is there's already a blind spot in how we look at, in how creative or communications being addressed in today's time. And a blind spot defined as every content advertising we see today's times is always wearing a mask, home cookie, home cocooning and everything. And there seems to be a desire, and as I think it was Google that showed the results, the advertising that treats stories of normalcy, things that reminds them on what family bonding is all about, things that reminds them on what matters most in life, whether it's spending time with your kids, are the ones that are resonating. It's not anymore clearly that because I have a mask and that's it. That seemed to be where the trend is coming from. But then again, in my end, I'm very pragmatic, and based on the clients we are handling. At the end of the day, it's the breadcrumbs that you say, the stories you tell. It's not about one big, massive story cascaded massively across major distribution points. And I think some of the questions here is regarding video. Video speaks even better by Theodore C. I think he wrote this. With our current internet speed environment, how do we hurdle the following issues? Speed of internet, IPR issues, and so on and so forth. Again, as I said, while video is the desired format, right? The way we define video now isn't the way video was defined previously. The video production before is massive. It's all the glossiness of communications that drives a story. Now is different. It's authenticity, how stories are created, how even user-generated content are being shared. So a video as a format doesn't necessarily mean expensive. Yes, obviously music plays an important role. The reason why I shared the Oishi is because it has all the elements that tell a magnificent story. The cinematic description of the experience, the music, the expression, all elements that fall into the right place to create a so-called big storm of what storytelling is. But today's world doesn't have to be that way, Theodore. It doesn't have to follow a video expensive format. A blog can write a story. Similarly, the blog site of Trisha. Hin Hin isn't a big spender. It just so happened in their launch phase that they wanted to tell that story of what Hin Hin is. But the rest are blog articles, features. They're not expensive, but it's still storytelling.
Mm, yeah, I really, really agree. And with the advancement of technology in our hand, that we can really produce so many images, stream music, etc., etc., uh, at a very affordable way of doing videos and multimedia when it comes to presenting and developing our storytelling. Videos are not expensive at this point in time, I must say. So well, there is another question here talking about metrics. So how do we know that our storytelling content really resonates? What should be the, can you give us your ideas of what should be the metrics?
I think Shane touched on it a bit in the brilliant basics that she's trying to say. It still boils down to what the role of the story is in a consumer funnel. If your story is focusing and trying to trigger interest of your audience, then that should be your KPI. Across the funnel, even from a cart metric standpoint, you have your certain story that brings the customer to the cart. But did that check out? Why? Perhaps there's something about the way you tell your story that needs a little push. And in terms of the tactics, that's what you call retargeting. You're trying to retarget a certain audience, you're trying to understand what makes that customer move the needle. So stories should have a connection to business results. And as I said, I don't believe in massive, big storytelling. As a matter of fact, the awareness phase today have a different context of it. I believe what is important is look at the interest phase, the consideration, the purchase, the loyalty. That part of the funnel, to my mind, is where small is the new big really play. So the metrics is really dependent, but you need to connect it to the consumer funnel. In terms of brand equity scores, and we don't have to go to a Nielsen to spend millions of pesos to do a market research. You can do social listening, trying to understand what are the positive or keywords that define your story. You observe it, look at the keywords. Does it match to the story that you're trying to put in play? Does it talk about your company as one that is customer friendly, for example? Does the social media depict that way? So it's not anymore that massive thing to spend. You look at breadcrumbs that you can see, whether it's Twitter, how your customers engaging your blog site, look at your website, what are the comments, and put that into buckets and try to match it with the equities that you want to build, the persona of the brand that you're trying to create, what the story is all about. Then that becomes measurable. But then again, it's all about business. We always say, look at the consumer funnel. Where does your story play an important role in that funnel? Does it push the needle? Does it bring your product to the shopping cart? How come it's not being checked out? What is perhaps the story about it? Personalize things, match headlines and visuals, connect it to the various segmentation, and that perhaps could be the metrics that you want to play.
The most important metric is when your storytelling really converts your visitors towards paying into something, into your product. Okay, right. And talking about persona, Ms. Shane, can you answer this? How do you choose which specific persona, like WAIS, as sole characteristics to target as baseline in content development?
Thank you for that question. I highly urge you guys to invest time in both qualitative and quantitative research. In this day and age, we have to be very data-driven in our decisions. And there is no excuse. Even by owning our Facebook page, we have access to so much information already. I would even sometimes remind my clients, maybe we could just do a survey on the page and get the thoughts of consumers. It's as easy as that. And just listening to the feedback of how consumers perceive your brand. So I really do hope that, I know that our instinct and especially our own understanding of the brand, because we are the experts of our brands, right? But we need to mirror that. We need to complement how we understand our brand with the way consumers understand our brands as well, and let the persona speak out. One thing to warn you, you might, if you are going to launch qualitative and quantitative research efforts, you will be faced with several personas. That's for sure. So do not be scared that people will interpret you to be different types of faces, and it's perfectly okay. In fact, that is really very good because it means they see your brand in different various situations, and that's what we want. We want consumers to relate with our brands, whether it's a positive scenario or whether it's a negative scenario, and for the fact that they remember us in those scenarios, it means that we have a role to play. So I hope that you can kick things off.
So how do you ensure?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you ensure that message you will create will not send a different message to consumers later on when you're drafting your content?
Yes, and to add to what I've mentioned, I spoke about earlier brand themes methodology, and I talked about the methodology of factor clustering. The nucleus of both methodologies would be about consumer feedback. You will know if you are not in the right path. That is for sure. It is the absence of feedback or the negative sentiment that you will receive. So be very open-minded. Don't be scared of the kind of consumer feedback that you will receive. And I hope that you will explore those two methodologies. It doesn't have to be an expensive exercise. Please put together your brand spheres, juxtapose yourself against the competitors out there and see where you play. See where you play. And again, as you launch, as you put out your content pieces out there, we keep an open mind. Listen to what consumers have to say. So monitor for no reaction at all and monitor for negative sentiment.
Mm-hmm. So there is here not really a question, but a comment. No? You said that thank you very much for the learnings that was shared today. Such a great job, and kudos to those two speakers and all the best. That's coming from Mr. Amurao of Airlink Aviation. Actually, the speakers we have today are really the best in the industry with regards to content development. And this is how much I admired and really respect the craft of these two top-notch speakers that we have today. So I'm glad you mirror what I have in my mind when we're really inviting these two guys. And thank you very much for sharing your expertise.
Hey, Noreen, I'd just like to add and build further what Shane is trying to share. I think the after what, I think you guys can see how young I am in the industry. Folks, in today's age, particularly in today's age, previous generations don't seem to embrace this kind of thing. And the kind of thinking is, don't be afraid to fail. You've seen, that's why I honestly believe in today's generation, small is the new big. Don't be afraid to experiment. Put out the content, see how that content is being accepted. Open up, listen. Perhaps your persona may not necessarily fit in with the brand you thought it's all about. Think of various storylines. Don't be afraid to fail. Little investment doesn't, unlike previously, you have to spend tons and tons of money just to determine whether there's a customer acceptance or not. Times have changed. You can invest small, see where it's heading. Perhaps you were wrong in the way you were crafting a story. move on, learn, fail fast, move fast, progress over perfection, as they say. So that's today's times, and I guess that's the lesson or learning I'd like to share with all of you.
Yeah, painful realization, because maybe during our time when we were learning, our teachers will always tell us, do not fail. Dapat, you should really learn a lot so you will not fail. But times have changed. Look at the startup generation now. We're being taught for saying, experiment, do not be afraid to fail. And this is how digital or how agile mentality is giving us all the tools, as well as being agile and being flexible and resilient to all the things that we do in our life. So there's a question for me, Shane. Are meta tags still relevant now in SEO marketing? Because it seems everyone is doing it. So how do we be different as an SMI or in an online world where everyone is in the same bandwagon, using the same online tools and targeting in the same online marketplace?
Yes, capital YES. Yes, it's very important. I hope that you have an SEO expert beside you who is taking care of your meta tags. But I think the bigger issue that we need to be taking care of would be, are we tagging the right content, right? Even if we have all these tags at the back end of our site, if we are tagging ourselves into pages or topics that have nothing to do with what we stand for, then instead of appearing in the first page, we can actually be penalized so that we don't want that to happen to your brand, right? And if you have further SEO questions, you can reach out to Miss Norlin, because FMI has SEO specific classes, so please do reach out. But to answer your question, yes, please. But I hope that you remember my slide earlier, that please put together your keyword map, because the keyword map will guide you into what meta tags should be placed. So it's not about quantity, but it's about quality. Or else, remember my Google Penguin. The Google Penguin algorithm will be there to catch you, and your website will be greatly affected. And perhaps you're ranking currently on page 2, and if that algorithm detects that you are meta tagging yourself, your own content to topics that are not within your space of expertise, and it's really just to get traffic to your site, your page 2 might become page 15 in 24 hours. So again, gear for quality, thrive for quality beyond quantity.
That's right. So there is another question here. How expensive is SEO? How much do we have to prepare for it? We are a very small organization and do not have much manpower and financial resources for that matter. Alam mo, as what Miss Shane said, learn the basics of SEO and try to acquire skills on how to optimize your sites, how to do your keywords, do some competitive analysis, and all of us are challenged to learn new skills. At this time and age, we are now confronted with the internet. All of us have to go digital. Learn some basic skills for SEO. In fact, I think in YouTube, if you just Google that, there's also a lot of tutorials in SEO, and learn step by step, and you will get through it. It's not that really difficult, I guess. So do that. Your answer here is Google. Try to do some how-tos in the Google tutorials. Okay, I was just wondering how ad agencies were affected by the pandemic. How are you guys thriving with the closure of ABS-CBN? And how will this affect your marketing strategies of brands? Both of you represents two different agencies. Please answer this question.
I will let Shane start off with that answer.
Very controversial question. Thank you po. Thank you po for sharing, anonymous attendee. That yes, it's actually an issue at hand. But to be very honest with you, having ABS-CBN no longer, on TV, no longer in the channels that we are used to getting content from them. For us, for me, I'm speaking for myself. The way we look at this equity, this property, ABS-CBN, they simply migrated to a different channel. They bring with them the same editorial reputation. They bring with them the same content. They bring with them the same way that they curate the content that they believe will help people. So obviously, if we see that the audience for our brands have shifted as well, then we actually buy the space or inventory programmatically. So in Havas, we have our own programmatic trading dashboard, and ABS-CBN is one of the properties that provide premium inventory in that trading platform. So we simply saw a shift. So it's not perceiving the situation wherein we actually lost an arm, right? And our reach has been sacrificed. The engagements we are providing our consumers, it has gone down by 70%, badly put. It's where we're seeing it as a shift, a medium channel shift. And so as long as we see our campaigns benefiting from that equity, from that property, we also made that shift. Because again, we don't buy space. We know in digital, we no longer buy a banner ad, but we buy the audience. So as long as the audience is there, then the brand or our campaigns will be there.
Right. How about you, Sir Ed?
Reality check, like all other businesses. The advertising industry is affected by the pandemic. That's the reality. The nature of business isn't normal. The TV materials aim to be produced by creative agencies are put on hold. Media agencies are scrambling how to achieve the reach of ABS-CBN. I mean, that's the reality. We're affected. But it all depends on where you are in the food chain. If you're reliant to purely the business of media and focusing on your business on broadcasting the way it is before, interpreted on TV frequency, TV spots, and definitely you'll be affected. But if you're in the food chain wherein your revenue stream isn't anchored in that, it's actually, to our lens, greener pastures for us, because that's where data is now very important. And our business in Entropy is all about data, anticipatory data that helps a very strategic build on how you communicate, how you deliver content. It's all about digital transformation. For us, yes, we're affected. Certain projects are put on hold. But on our lens, it's a different thing. The demand for digital transformation is massive today, and it has different scales, from the legacy companies trying to slowly fast track to companies born in this age, but they lack the expertise of digital marketing because they're more of a technology, fintech thing. So it depends on where you are in the food chain, anonymous attendee. But overall, definitely the advertising industry is affected. And where you are in the food chain, that's where you have to adapt. On my lens, we see a lot of opportunities. Augmented reality and VR is one of the hottest topic that's being discussed by our clients. Data as an anticipatory way of reading customers is very valuable now. Automation is so important, particularly in today's shift and learnings from the pandemic. So yes, we're affected. Where you are in the food chain will speak volumes on how your business is affected. And if you're in an area that really focuses on digital, beyond the food chain of creative advertising, media, and all that traditional model, it's promising time. Challenging, obviously, but very promising.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Sir Ed. Okay, very quick. For content creators that handle and make content for multiple brands, what is the wisest way to handle making articles, graphics, videos, when these brands differ in persona, products, and audience?
May I give my thoughts on that? Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. For content creators, this is where we really come in, and we have to make the right decisions. For content creators, we have the likes of your generalists and your specialists. So I could not emphasize the importance of measuring whenever you deal or partner with certain content creators. So this is truly a call for A/B testing. So if you have a campaign that has to drive maximum traffic to the e-commerce store or to the online store, then you would have to A/B test the impact of the generalists and the specialists. Because to be honest, there is no rule of thumb. I have personally experienced wherein we had a mobile phone launch, and automatically you would say, I want to partner with all the gadget mobile phone bloggers out there. But to be honest, it's not the case all the time. We have campaigns wherein we tap into generalists like lifestyle writers, those who use mobile phones innately in whether with their fashion needs or their fashion interests, or their gaming interests. So you need to find that beautiful balance between partnering with your general content creators and your specialist content creators. And that's how it has to be. Employ an A/B test to know which you would have to skew towards to based on the objective of your campaign. And if you say, how do we handle articles, graphics, and videos? I would only have one answer for that. The more, the merrier. Because in the digital world, it's about may the best material win. It's not about putting out just one material and then running it for 6 months. Patay. I'm very sure there's a very limited opportunity to learn there, right? But if you put out all at the same time in parallel, you have videos, you have static, you have carousel, you have content and text, in a dynamic slideshow. So you get to balance off the kinds of formats that resonate to one audience, a certain segment that resonate to another audience. So it really allows you to cast a wider net to be able to get your message across.
Thank you for that, Ms. Shane. That's right. So, Sir Ed, can you answer this? How do we energize our school presence in social media? How do we energize our school presence in social media?
By focusing the life of your students. I remember I've handled a school brand before. I also was familiar on how our Kuala Lumpur office was handling another school brand. And the pivot we discovered is sometimes in school administrators, they focus too much on themselves and the reputation of the brand, what the school stands for, forgetting that their audience or customers belong to a different world when social media is live streamed. We're in a beating in the being bullied in a comfort room can escalate in less than a few minutes. So in today's challenge, where the pandemic and everything, look at the students, connect with them. What are they experiencing now? Be a community. Remember, they have free time together. They're with their parents. Create activities that build content. Talk to them. Be with them. Share with them what it is. And perhaps you will now see the opportunity in this lull period to take the opportunity to connect more with your students at the time when connection really matters, where connection with loved ones, with activities that matter, speaks volumes. Connect with them. And I'm sure you will see your school resonate, and you will see it will be energized. And perhaps being energetic is defined differently. It doesn't have to be ah la la as a kind of energy, but rather energy defined as how you're connecting with your students. Subtle, silent energy can speak volumes. A simple dialogue ripples in terms of your storytelling aspects. So yes, connect with them, and you'll discover what new kind of energy you will find in today's times.
Thank you so much, Sir Ed. Just some few notes before we end. Miss Shane, thank you for sharing important Google SEO algorithms. It was an aha moment for me, like I'm clapping my hands right now. Also, hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the meaningful and wonderful talk. I learned so much from our great speakers, and have a wonderful day. Miss Joyce, our friend, has a question for Miss Shane, but I guess I will connect both of you via email. So she's asking, I love to see how an actual sample playbook would look like. Can you provide this? So maybe
Yes,
I will.
sure. No worries. There's a free Google downloadable playbook. I can email it with to Miss Noralyn, and I can also share a screenshot of the framework I created before. Considering if you are a global brand or a regional brand, so you can localize and customize as you need. No problem.
Okay, can you hear me? It seems that my internet connection is bad. Anyway, balikan ko lang on the last note, on the final note about this McDonald's and Jollibee. Sorry, I have to introduce that kanina. So I think between McDonald's and Jollibee, what is important is still not the features but the feature of the service or the product, but the benefit to the consumer. And then Eric Nabyong, one of the audiences, it's true. As a uh, previous service crew of a fast food or restaurant, it's not about the deliciousness and new products we serve, but the most important is we rendered a good service to the customer, and it will be seen on their feedback if it is good or bad. Well, that's very true. No? It's now the age of customer experience, and that is what our customers are buying from us, as we all see. So, okay, so thank you, speakers. Hoping to meet you in person and learn more about your field when it is safe again, and we can go out to meet up with you. So I guess we have answered all the questions and answers. You can still continue the conversation with Sir Ed and Miss Shane. I think they flashed their contact emails in their presentation, and you will have a copy of the presentations when you download it when we give you the email advisory maybe next week. So you can continue talking with them and maybe ask them certain questions that we were not able to discuss in today's question and answer session. So to our participants, we thank you for your invaluable participation in today's webinar, and we hope to see you again in our upcoming events. Like we have project management tools and techniques. That's going to be July 30 and 31. We have risk management webinar. That's going to be on August 4. We have strategic media planning and buying webinar. It's going to be August 6 and 7. And when it comes to market research, we will have capturing drivers of market preferences. And this is a webinar on conjoint analysis. Then another very interesting topic we will have or a webinar is making weddings memorable. This is a webinar in successful wedding event management. And part of our pivot is that we invite you or we encourage you to upskill your team's knowledge, skills, and capabilities to meet the requirements of the new normal. So we are now offering customized in-house training for your company, and you can call us for your training needs. And together, we can design your specific training program. Also, at this time of the pandemic, we have to start the business recovery strategies by going digital. So we also offer digital marketing services package based on your business transformation requirements. So jumpstart your digital transformation journey, and you can call us for details. We are also inviting you to one of the things that we did in terms of our pivot. So we have created a Graphic Expo Online. It's a creative imaging, science, and printing virtual exhibition that serves as an e-marketplace for sourcing, imaging, science, and printing technologies and end-to-end solutions. For inquiries, you can get in touch with us through our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, or you can also call us in the numbers that's flashed on the screen. So I once again would like to say thank you to Ed and Miss Shane for such very generous sharing of your ideas and knowledge and experiences. We also thank our participants, and we hope to see you again in our future webinars. So at this point, can we have the last few words from Sir Ed and followed by Miss Shane? Sir Ed, your last words, please.
All right. The fact that you're spending this time to learn is a good start. Continue learning. Be forever curious, because it will take you a lot in the journey. Stay safe. Always stay safe. Don't be afraid to fail. Experiment. Be mindful that in today's world, small is the new big. Work on that, have belief on your business, have a belief in yourself, learn new skills, is what Norlin's saying, and surely you will see the pivot you're moving into. So maraming salamat. Thank you for time, and this is Ed Mapa signing off.
Thank you so much, Sir Ed. And Miss Shane, your parting words.
Thank you, Miss Norlin, and thank you, Sir Ed, also for sharing a lot today. Take notes din ako kanina when Sir Ed was talking. My last, tips to everyone. First, congratulations. You have invested a lot of time to learn, so that's really a great thing. And I couldn't emphasize more that things have changed. It's not like before. So if you are looking at your marketing plans and they look the same as you planned it last January, then there's something wrong. We need to be agile enough to actually think and strategize if indeed the blueprint that we have set for this year, applicable pa ba? Is this what people looking for pa rin? And you gotta take 5 steps back to really see the bigger picture and again be able to magnet the new audience out there, because again we are in the new normal. And please do not forget our brilliant basics, PPV. Please do decide and be consistent with your PPV, and everyone would be looking for meaning and purpose behind your every campaign. Expectations are higher than before, so there's really no excuse to not be out there. Let's not wait it out. Let's grab this opportunity, go out there, talk to our consumers and do our best. Sabi nga ni Sir Ed, let's not forget to experiment, to A/B test, and not be afraid to fail. And that's really how we're going to learn through this. There's no brand out there who can say they are the experts through COVID-19. We are all in this together. We are in reboot phase. We are all learning, and the only way to really expedite and really get our learning curve as steep and as high as we can is really getting out there and actually doing things. So again, good luck, and I hope that all your marketing campaigns are not only COVID-19 proof, but are actually future proof, and that you will be out there to talk about who you really are and how you will bring meaning to the lives of consumers.
With that, thank you very much, Miss Shane. I really share your passion and your level of standards with regards to our marketing work. Thank you so much. And to everyone, we really thank you for joining us in this webinar. So God bless and you stay safe, everybody. Mabuhay pa rin ang Pilipinas. Thank you. Bye-bye.